Is one of the hardest things about homeschool academics grading? Well, I am going to help you make grading super slick and super easy because you are going to master rubrics. Rubrics make clear goals and confident kids. In what it feels like another lifetime ago, I taught writing to middle school aged children. It quickly became apparent to me that evaluating writing can be very subjective unless there are guidelines set up before the student ever picks up their pen and puts it to paper. So I created rubrics before they were even a thing because I wanted my students to know exactly what I was looking for in their writing so that they could choose to succeed and not guess for a grade. What is a rubric? A rubric is a scoring tool or a set of guidelines used to evaluate the quality of work or a performance in an objective manner. How can a rubric be used? It can be used in different ways. I like to give the student the rubric, which clearly states what I am evaluating for and how. The rubric is given at the same time that the student gets the assignment. This leads the student naturally to self-assess their own work. They will begin creating, and I am going to use writing as my example because I know this very well, and see the first thing that they need is, say, an introduction of one sentence that clearly states to the reader what the paragraph will be about. Now the student will go back to their introduction and make certain that they have one complete sentence, and it tells me, the reader, what I will be learning about in that paragraph. This is a total win. I would recommend creating a rubric any time you have a gray area in assessment. This way you will take any subjectivity out of the evaluation, and the child will know what you are placing the higher priorities on. Here are some ideas: art, musical performance, oral presentation, major projects, writing assignments, participation like discussion, and portfolios. What is the purpose of a rubric? A rubric can serve many purposes. For me, in a language arts classroom, it made a possibly subjective grading system objective. It also empowered the students to self-assess their own projects. They can look at the rubric, look at their own work, and say, I'm going to be graded on this. Did I include it? This leads to total self-assessment and the ability to self-critique their works. It also gives your child the power to decide what they want to score on their assignments. I believe this gives children a sense of self-esteem and confidence as well. My students knew they could do the work, and now they had a roadmap for how. A rubric also provides clarity for both you and your student in what you are actually learning from the assignment. This could actually be very enlightening for you both. Are you prioritizing punctuation, grammar? If you are homeschooling, a rubric is fabulous for ending any strife over assessment. Because if your child's like, no, I don't understand, I shouldn't have scored that way. I don't understand. You should have scored me higher. You can just get out the rubric and you can say, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Now, you shouldn't have to do that so much because the child should be able to see those things clearly. But in the beginning, you're going to have to work together to learn how to use the rubric with your child. There are different kinds of rubrics. You can see many of them as well as make a customized one on Canva. A rubric came with a standardized writing portion of the test that the kids had to nationally take in 6th grade about 25 years ago when I was teaching. I have no idea if they still use this test or if they use the same rubric. However, the rubric was nothing short of awful. You cannot find it online. I tried because I was going to put it up here on this. The teachers did not get it in advance, so we could not go over what the expectations for their writing would be. And there was one portion in the rubric called voice, and the students scored a 1 to 5 on it, 5 being very good, 1 being not so good. And voice is something that you can teach in school, and we do teach in school. But you need to have parameters for what it is. What are they going to count as voice at each section for 1 through 5? I do not remember clear delineation or description for what voice meant according to that rubric. Even after the students got their scores back, there was no, this was what a 1 was in voice and this is what a 4 was in voice. And if I could not figure it out, I have no idea how my 6th grade students scored either high or low, and I don't know how they ever would have figured that out. I always kind of felt like the committee who put this whole standardized test together put that category on there so people reviewing the test would have freebie points to give to the papers they just liked better, which is a horrible thing to say. But to me, that's like that subjective part. So I have a rubric I have done in my way because I've done it differently. And I'm including that in the notes, and it's free, but I have it in my 2nd grade lesson plans. And so if you want to grab that, it's a download with your email and it's in the notes. So this is exactly the wrong way to make a rubric. When you create a rubric and you don't give any kind of delineation or explanation, and you don't give it before so the student can try to exceed or come to those specific standards. What you want to include in your rubric is criteria. Which skills will be evaluated? Point value. If you have different level skills, be sure to have them represented by point value, levels or categories or importance, that kind of thing. Description. You should have clear and concise explanations for what is expected at each level or for each skill or each criteria. You should be able to assess the work, give a score, and then show your child without saying, oh yeah, well then I forgot about this, or I'm going to include this. No, only what's on the rubric. The child should then be able to see exactly where they gained or lost points. Special note, if your child did not score as highly as they would like on their rubric, knows why, and would like to try again, I would totally allow them to do this. I do not believe that learning takes place on a linear timeline. So let them go for it. Get a better grade, let them get a higher score, whatever, however you're doing your point system. What are some common mistakes to avoid? When creating or evaluating a rubric, it's important to avoid these common mistakes. 1, not providing enough detail. 2, being too lenient or too strict. 3, failing to use consistent language. 4, neglecting to review the rubric regularly. 5, vague or ambiguous language. And I can see how that one might be a little bit confusing. So for an example, I said, for your rubric line, you wouldn't say, write a good sentence. So you would need to explain what a good sentence means, like, a subject, a verb, whatever you're looking for in your good sentence. Placing too much importance on the wrong priority. And I'm going to give you an example again based on English. So 50 points for punctuation and grammar, and 10 points each for each of the sentences. Introduction, reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, and conclusion. This would mean in a writing assignment, I am giving equal value to something a computer can fix for the student as I am to their actual writing and forming of quality sentences. Oh, that's not good. And then one thing I forgot to include in that list, so I think I was on 6. So number 7 for common mistakes to avoid. Your child should be learning something with every single rubric, but they shouldn't be learning 5 somethings with every single rubric. So don't have a whole bunch of stuff in your rubric, and especially don't have a whole bunch of new stuff. Only have 1 new skill in each rubric. So don't overtax them and don't over expect from them things in the rubric. How can a rubric build student confidence? Effective rubrics should prompt students to reflect on their learning process. They will look at what is working, what is not, and usually after the assessment, want to redo the work. This reflection helps your child recognize how they learn best and which strategies they can utilize to improve, which helps them develop their metacognition skills. Students also develop a sense of ownership and responsibility when they understand how their work is being evaluated. Rubrics enable students to identify their goals and set realistic targets for themselves. As they see really complex tasks being broken down into manageable components, they are able to focus on making improvements bit by bit and being successful. These wins boost their confidence. By embracing the power of rubrics, homeschoolers can enhance communication, build confidence, and help students succeed in their success. Rubrics help you to break free from traditional assessment methods to help promote a love of learning and encourage your child to evaluate their own work. Such a win. Kids movie quote. You will be facing Professor McGonagall in a moment. She's going to ask you about your grades. Hermione Granger in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, I want to send you a huge thank you. Please leave me a comment or review and share with other moms you know. Get in touch in the comments or on Kara's social media networks. See you next week for a new episode.